Yo, 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 what up, what up, what up? Welcome to the Cars and Kicks podcast. I don't know why I'm banging on my desk, but it just felt like the right thing to do in the moment. So we're banging on the desk today. I am Jacques Slade. We have a fantastic show for you guys today. I think it's going to call it favorites or not the best, but it's like not a top. It's not a top. It's a
good moments.
Fave. It's a good moments. I like that.
It's not
that.
a list.
I like that.
It's just
not a list. Yeah,
we're
just
important things, you know.
I like that. Favorites, importance. We're taking a different approach to the year-end episode, just because we want to give you guys something a little bit different here and give you something a little bit more nuanced, something a little more meaty, something you can hold on to that's gonna sit well in your stomach. It's not gonna just run through you, and that's probably not the analogy you wanted. Anyway.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Yeah. Let's get this started with, of course, the intro. I need a.
What do you need? What do you need? I got you on backup. What do you need?
I was gonna say this is a.
I got a guitar. You want me to play you?
This is actually a slider. It's not a guitar. So I'm faking a guitar today. Hold on, let me tune it. Ding ding dong ding ding. Ding. Okay. Ding ding-a-ling, ding ding-a-ling.
Ding-a-ling.
And we've got your cars and we've got your kicks. We're going to get them in a mix, and we're thanking you for listening. Ching chicka ching 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 to the show. Ching-a-ling, ding 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 ding. Got Jacques and Nick. Can't forget Erik. You're listening to Cars and Kicks. It's the show. Ding, 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 and ding, ding, ding. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well
Folks,
done. Well done.
If you are one of the audience that solely listens to the podcast and doesn't actually go to YouTube and watch the videos, you need to make it a point to go watch this actual visual version of the intro, because that was. I have no words, Jacques. I mean, wow. What a way to start.
Look, we're giving you visual gifts, and if you choose not to accept them, that's on you. We're giving you the things that you need to be entertained outside of just these incredible voices that you hear. You could see our faces, and you could see me fake play guitar on a camera slider, which, I mean, well, actually, I shouldn't even say a camera slider case, to be more specific. So, we're giving you the gifts, and if you choose not to accept, that's totally on you. So, anyway, with that being said, welcome to our
no other podcast is doing, ladies and gentlemen.
No other podcast. I can guarantee you that. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is our favorites, important moment things of the year show. It's the year-end show, all wrapped up into one. Really excited about this episode because obviously some great things happened this year. A lot of the doom stuff that we always feel like, everything is going to hell. Not really. There's some really great things that happen, and we want to make sure we share those with you guys. I am Jacques Slade. I'm the sneaker guy here on this podcast, so I talk about your feet a lot. But really, that's not why you came here. You really want to know about the cars, and that's why these two guys are here, because without them, it would just be the feet show. And who wants to listen to a feet show? No, well, there's probably a lot of people that want to listen to a feet show, but that's for the
OnlyFans account that we're launching.
Yeah, that's our OnlyFans account. Cars and Kicks _OnlyFans. We accept Zelle, Cash App, Venmo, all the things. Yeah. But more importantly, I'm gonna pass this off to Erik so he can make his introduction.
Yeah, I'm glad we're not talking about today. Feet. I'm not wearing shoes right now, but I'm not going to show you all my feet, which is probably a good thing. We do. We have a fun little episode for you guys to kind of cap off the year. A lot of people do the end of the year thing. We're putting our own twist on it. I guess just the kind of lighthearted. To kind of lighten the whole thing and go lighthearted with this. It's been, I guess we launched this, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. So we didn't get the full 2024 with y'all. But for those that have been here since day one, just want to start off by saying thank you. It means the world that y'all are showing us all the support and allowing us to keep doing this and come up with creative bits like playing air guitar with, camera cases and stuff. It's like quality stuff that we're really focusing on here. And that's all because of you guys. So thank you for that. No, I'm, as mentioned, I'm Erik. I'm the car guy, one of the car guys here, but that is kind of my specialty here. And we're excited for this one. Nick, why don't you introduce yourself? Because as per usual, Jacques and I are just rambling.
Yeah, if you're new here, I was referred to as the Raccoon Rambler on one of our recent episodes. I don't know how I got that job, but hey, look at me, I kind of love both of these things way too much. I have unhealthy obsession with both cars and kicks, so I kind of play in the middle ground of these two gentlemen. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to jump right into things too hard, but we finally started this show. We've been talking about it for quite some time. So first on my list, if this is a list, gotta say shout out to you guys for like pushing each other and myself and all of us finally making this happen.
Oh, I wasn't going to start tearing up this early, man. Jeez. Yeah, here, let me do this half, Jacques. You do the other half.
Yeah, get a little heart. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Side note.
No, thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, this is something, again, that we've talked about for a while, so I appreciate you saying that. But yeah, man, you were as big of a part of this from its inception as Jacques and I, and I echo your sentiments there. It's been fun getting this thing started with y'all. But side note real quick, are you wearing a sport coat? Because are you celebrating the end of the year here, Nick? What is that?
No. It's just a Dickie shirt. Shirt.
I was tripping for a minute. I thought I was way underdressed for this celebration here, but it's a good look.
My hoodie, of course.
Trying to raise the bar,
Yeah, level up. Oh, man.
That's right. Hey, we've been to some car events, and they want you to dress fancy.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the whole dress code thing. I mean, obviously Pebble Beach, which we'll talk a little bit about that because that was a highlight of this year, even though we didn't go. We covered it from afar. But, yeah, I get their kind of dress-up thing, so to speak, but that's a hot take right there. Like, why are there dress codes at car shows and car events? I don't know how I feel about that.
It's interesting, right? Like, I think of this in there's a lot of tie-ins to this, to cars and kicks and golf and all of these. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw, like, even just recently, what's the quarterback for the Eagles? Jalen Hurts.
Oh, Jalen
Hurts, yeah.
Just got a fine from the league for wearing two mismatched Jordan 11s.
Oh, that's right. I think Jacques,
I
Jacques
think about
talked about that.
Yeah.
Sacre bleu. Oh no.
Well, and then I started thinking, well, I don't know. I'm old enough to remember when half the league's kickers were kicking barefoot, so that had to have been a dress code violation, right? But anyway,
you are old.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, but it's interesting because, like, I just want to wear my Giants hat and a hoodie and some sneakers, and like that's kind of been my life goal throughout my career. And I was talking to people talking to the Sunday Red team actually on the Sneaker History podcast about this, where we have these like dress codes, and like certain things are flipped, right? Some of them feel like dress codes and some of them feel like, oh, I want to like level up for this event. And that line between the two is very, very fine. You're talking about Concourse d'Elegance at Pebble Beach. Only times I've worn sneakers, like I'm wearing sneakers with some sort of sport coat or something a little fancy, right? And might be one of the only times you see me without a hat. If you need to know that I have hair under this hat, then let's meet up at Monterey Beach next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is an event that we didn't really talk about, just kind of because the time that it happened and everything like that. But one really cool car event that we should probably look into attending that does have a dress code, but for all the right reasons, is Radwood. Jacques, are you familiar with Radwood? Have you heard of this?
Yes, but you can go ahead and explain it to the audience. So the audience.
Yeah, I thought so. I wanted to. Didn't mean to put you on the spot. I should have known that you knew everything about this.
Yeah, of course.
No,
Yeah.
Radwood, for those that maybe don't know about this, started at I don't know how many years ago with a group of guys that girls that were just into cars and really into the 80s and 90s cars, and so they started doing these kind of gatherings. And they were themed, and so your car had to be from something cool from that era, and by cool, it can be a complete beater as long as it's like iconic 80s or 90s, of sorts. And so just kind of like organically, people started showing up dressing accordingly, like it was 1985 or 1992 or whatever. And so you're seeing a lot of bright colors and like cool Aquanet hairstyles and like baggy jeans and any of that stuff. So, and the sneakers, it's everybody's wearing sneakers because that was like the mecca, the like high point of sneaker design is that 80s early 90s sneaker thing. So we definitely have to hit that up next year. Maybe we'll partner with them or do something official with them. But either way, that is the one show that I will say where a dress code is appropriate, I guess.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's really cool.
But yeah, in the interest of talking about kind of end of year and highlights and everything like that, Jacques, you want to lead us off with maybe some of the what are we calling it, the good moments in the sneaker space this year?
The good moments of the year. I think I kind of want to start off with like collaborations because they seem to have taken on another life in 2024. So I would like to tip my hat to, I should say, to the Whitner Group for the Armand Manière collabs that they did this year.
Yeah.
I would say they probably produced the best collection of collaborations this year. They had a Jordan 3, they had a 95. They had a Jordan 4, they had a Chuck Taylor, and they had an Air Force One, I think. So I think that was like their 5 this year. And that's a pretty solid run for collaborations. A lot of people, a lot of stores, like they don't, it takes 5-10 years for them to be able to collaborate on each one of those models within 1 year. And they were able to do it in 1 year. They kept the language the same, the design or collab language of it the same. They had a really great marketing campaign behind it. They told some really great stories. So I feel like they are one of the standouts for sure for 2024 for me.
Yeah Nick, you guys are the two aficionados in the sneaker space. Is there anything else that kind of stood out to you sneaker wise for 24?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the first person that comes to mind for me is J Tips. Like he's continued to partner with Saucony and really tell poignant stories that are, like straight from him and his experiences. And to me, that's always like something that gets people interested and gets me interested when the kind of narrative behind the releases has a lot of depth to it. And I think that allows you to go a little bit crazier on the colorways, which he's done with his choices.
Yeah.
And I think like kind of right there parallel with him, the Kids of Immigrants, Nike Sunder, they're kind of carrying like Nike in a lot of ways right now with that shoe, because it was slightly different than the original Sunder. The original Sunder came back out in a bunch of colorways. It sold, I would say it sold okay, but it's still available out there for anybody that's into it. But it's a shoe that's really low key. Like you had to be really passionate about sneakers back in the day for that shoe to have stuck with you. But what the Kids of Immigrants did, and the story, it's like super emotional. But they brought it around to where the design doesn't feel like the original. And I think that's like a really beautiful thing, like you don't get the opportunity to take it a step further. So like that, to me, they're right up there at the top, just because, like the Armand Manière stuff and even with the J Tip stuff, it's very much their colors and materials on
Yeah.
an existing story.
Silhouette.
Yeah. And I felt like, it's tough to get the brands to step outside of that comfort zone and give people the freedom. But I think when you have that right synergy between collaborators, like, this is always what brands shoot for, is to get to that level of synergy where, like, hey, we created something that pushed your boundaries, told our story, and we met in the middle, and like the world is like a better place for it. So yeah, those are the two that really stand out on the collab side for me this year.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jacques.
I hate to just single them out as collabs, like just like as far as just like, oh, that's the only thing we're talking about. But it's like I think those were some like the more special silhouettes that happened throughout the year. So it's not just the fact that it was a collab, it was a silhouette or a model that just kind of really stood out.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to the AE1. Everybody's obviously been talking about the AE1, and I think a lot of it has to do with the marketing of the AE1. I think people would have liked the shoe, but I think the marketing behind it definitely changed a lot of the tone, or either amplified some of the messaging that was already out there about the shoe, which I think had a huge impact. In recent history, there's very few new models that have that sort of impact on the culture. I mean, the Jordan signature shoe, it still gets love, but that's just because it's the Jordan signature shoe. There doesn't seem to be a lot that's different about it that's really going to resonate and stick with the community. But the AE1 and Adidas was able to do that. So kudos to, I mean, I would say, I want to, point out the AE1, but really kudos to Adidas and Adidas basketball. Adidas as a whole, really, they really did a lot of really things right this year. Samba was getting a ton of love this year. The golf stuff, on the golf side, they're doing really well. They're like doing collaborations with Adidas Skate, doing collaborations in house, which I think resonate and make sense. So it's really good to see them doing things. And Nike, they did great. Like they did what they usually do, I think, is kind of what it is. Like, it didn't feel like they did anything outside of the norm. And maybe that's why people aren't paying as much attention to them. Like they didn't have a terrible year. Like they had the Future Dunk. What else? What else came out this year?
Future Dunk,
the Mama stuff.
Yeah.
The Jordan 4 RMs. Yeah.
The Jordan 4 RMs. Like, it's not that they had a bad year. It just, I don't know. It didn't feel like anything really stood out and felt different, if that makes sense.
I think
for me, I kind of want to tap into what you guys are talking about more. I know you're not hyper focusing on the collab specifically. That's just kind of organically how this has gone. But for me, being the sneakerhead that isn't quite as in tune to everything as you guys, I love the collabs for a variety of reasons. They're, the silhouette of the shoe is cool. Changing the colorway is cool. But when there's kind of a story that goes along with that, it resonates a lot with me. And that brings me to something. We're going to give a handful of shouts out throughout this episode, just because there's been a lot of people that have supported us since we launched the podcast. And one of them is my boy Science. If you're listening, DJ Science up in Canada. This he's going to be on the podcast at one point in time. He's got a dope background. He was like big BMXer, like pro level BMXer back in the day, got heavy into the underground hip hop DJ scene, still DJs to this day, and just does a lot of dope stuff. But then he's been in the sneaker space up in Canada for a long time. And so he now heads up kind of the creative and marketing side, as well as a bunch of other hats that he wears for Livestock and Size, which are two big companies up in Canada. They're going to be branching out. I don't know how much I can say, but they're going to be branching out in the new year and beyond. But he sent this particular one here I have handy. He sent all three of us this one. So this would have been like, I'm going to pull a Jacques with the sneaker, unboxing thing here, but the Air Max 95 Torontos. And again, the detail, even on the box here, just kind of highlights all of the different, I don't know who illustrated this. I wish I could give him credit, but all the diverse culture, that you see in Toronto is kind of highlighted on the box here. And then, you know, the colorway is super dope. I'll just show that real quick. But this is kind of a, you know, him sending stuff to us to kind of show support to us and everything, which is cool. But the bigger one for me, from a storytelling standpoint, and again, this is a very low-key collab that I don't know if anybody in the United States has, but it meant a lot to me. So Science sent me, you know, for those of you that follow what I've done, we finished filming my show, Superman and Lois, earlier this year, which we shot up in Vancouver, Canada, for the last 4 years. And Vancouver became one of my favorite places in the world. I fell in love with the city. You know, its culture, its food, its, you know, nature, it's everything. And it meant a whole lot to me. And to be quite honest, it's a place I really want to go back to at some point and could have stayed there for the rest of my life. But they did a really dope collab, they being Size, which is one of the you know, the sneaker companies up there that Science works with. They did a collab with Reebok. And I'm going to show you this right here. So these, I don't know how focused I can get, but there are so many details on this, from the area code in the back, the 604, that's Vancouver. If you know, you know. The colorway down on the midsole here, and kind of the green and tan. This right here, again, stuff that won't matter to anybody outside of Vancouver, but these X's and the green arrows, all that colors and those X's and arrows are all, if you go across the Lionsgate Bridge from North Van to Vancouver proper or the other way, depending on what time of day you go, there's red X's or green arrows because they switch the flow of traffic on the lanes of that bridge and everything.
Yeah,
so, you know, it's got that. It's got the kind of Lionsgate logo on there that you see that on the bridge when you're crossing and everything. And so this was a Vancouver only release, collab with a low-key, relatively small company in the grand scheme of things. But he gave that to me as kind of a parting gift when I left Vancouver earlier this year. And so I haven't worn them yet. Obviously, they're still kind of sitting in the box because I don't know. I will wear them eventually, but those are a really special pair to me. And so that's a long ramble as to why these kind of launches and these collabs matter. It goes beyond just the design itself, but the storytelling and the attention to detail that goes into it. And then the fact that they become, you know, not just a, hey, I bought you a pair of sneakers thing, but what that represents to me, having spent 4 years, 4 of the best years of my life almost up in Vancouver, just really meant a lot. And the fact that he sent that to me for that, and then, you know, has supported us on the show since day one, has really meant a lot. So shouts out again to DJ Science. We're going to have you on the pod soon, but thank you for that. And thank y'all for letting me ramble a little bit about that, because it means a lot.
No, that's cool. I think, and that really shows what sneakers are all about. You know what I mean? A lot of people see sneakers as like just this utility of something you wear on your feet. But, you know, the thing that I like to preach, and Nick as well, is that, you know, it's more about the memories that you make in the shoes, or the memories that they help you recall. And obviously, you know, Vancouver was a special place to you. You know, professionally, it stands out in your career as like one of the highlights so far of the things that you've done. So of course that pair of shoes is always going to be special for you. So for this year, there's probably no other shoe that can be like, oh, well, this is the best shoe of the year. And you're like, well, my Reeboks mean a little bit more. So really, that's what it's all about. And that's why we chose to make them favorites, our favorites, as opposed to saying these are the best, because your favorite is probably the one that you have on your feet right now, or the one that's in your closet, or the one that's by your front door. And I respect that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like super key to all of this stuff, right? Like we talk about it. Erik says this a lot on the show, like the self-expression thing, right? Like these are both the way we think of cars and kicks and what we do. And I think we're steadily throwing golf into that mix too in our conversations, right?
Yeah.
But like, it's really about the self-expression. And like, I love, you know, like I live in Monterey. I love it here. It's absolutely my favorite place on the planet. But like, I don't want to see people, like if somebody made a Monterey shoe, I don't want to see somebody else wearing it and saying it's the best of the year, because I want to know, like, you know, Erik's coffee shop outside of, you know, Dallas. And like, I want to know what those guys care about, because that to me is more interesting than the stuff in my own neighborhood. And I think that's where, like, you know, like going back to these collaborations and these stories that happen across, you know, both of these things, or all these things that we love, like it comes from the heart wherever it's from, and like then you start to learn more about it. Like I spent a ton of time in Toronto when I lived up in Detroit, and like Cam's family used to spend a ton of time in Toronto, and that city is phenomenal. Like,
Yeah.
Kendrick and Drake beef aside, like it's one of my favorite cities I've ever been to. And I think that's like, one of those things where like when Science sent that pair to me, I'm like, man, this is super dope. Like to have this like memory for me where like, we some of our fondest memories with the crew at StockX in the early days, we were like, let's just get out of town and go to Toronto for the weekend.
Yeah.
So when those things kind of
That's
circle
dope.
back and like give you a point to kind of reconnect with the people that matter and the moments in your life, you can't really beat that. And I think kind of flipping to the car side of things, like this is something that I think car companies are always kind of trying to connect themselves to those moments for you. And we talked about it a little bit in previous episodes, but you know, you can't really force those moments, like they have to happen naturally, and people have to be excited to see their friends and to have that story be a part of their world.
Yeah.
And it's
Yep.
it's interesting as we do more and more of these shows, like, how much of those moments, thinking about like car unveilings, or like having Peter on as one of our first, couple of guests, and learning about the Hyundai, Ioniq 5N and like that kind of stuff. Like that stuff's super cool to me. Like I will be more of a fan of that. I already love that car, but like I will seek out that car in future,
Yeah.
car buying moments because of the conversations we had with him. And you can't really beat that, like it's just a
Nope.
real and tangible emotional experience for people. And hopefully we're also creating that for the people that are out here watching and listening to us. And honestly, like the way we were talking before this episode, hopefully we're wearing all these shoes in person and we're meeting all of you out there.
Yeah.
So
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facts. Uh, like those are like the major thing. I mean, well, I should mention the Kith Marvel A6 thing.
Oh yeah.
I just like I wasn't a huge fan of like the shoes in particular, but I was a fan of the entire like presentation of everything. I thought that was really dope.
yeah,
So they did, for those that don't know. So Kith did a collaboration with Marvel, but instead of just giving you a shoe with like the character's face on it, they used like the colors to highlight the shoes, which was cool as well. But then they announced it at Comic-Con, which again, massive thing, like just really talking to that culture of comic books. But then they included a PSA graded comic book as part of that collection, and it was wrapped up, and it was just like really like the execution was top level when it
Yeah.
comes to those kind of collaborations. And I think things like that matter. That's how you separate yourself in the market of 1,000 collaborations happen. Brands understand the value of a collaboration. They want to take that social capital of whoever it is they're collaborating with and add it to their capital, and that's how they try and sell you more shoes. But that the appeal of that is starting to die out a little bit because so many things are happening. So you've got to find something really different that translates to the audience. And I think Marvel and Kith, they were able to do that with that pack. Same thing with God, I think her name was Chanel Abney. Please, I
oh
hope I'm
yeah,
saying that
Jordan
right.
3. Yep.
The
Yeah.
Jordan 3.
Yeah, that was cool.
She was able to blend her artwork into the shoe in a way that felt separate from just coloring up a Jordan 3. It felt like her artwork was a part of the shoe. And again, that's how you really make a difference, and that's how you set the bar of separate yourself from everyone else in the market. And at least in my opinion. So that's where I want to give a couple of last minute shout outs there to them, because they feel like they definitely deserve it.
Totally agree. And I think one thing that Kith did really well with, I can't remember which series of their releases did this, but they did the blind box releases too, where,
Yeah.
you're buying it, not knowing necessarily, you're buying a size where you don't know what the color is. So like some of them are more limited. It made it kind of, like trading card, baseball card vibes, where you're like,
Yeah.
this is like a
Yeah.
cool collectability. It's more about the experience. And I think that is super relatable, like people, especially like for me, it's like I want to know somebody connected to the shoes. I want to know the artist. I want to know the, you know, people behind the scenes. Like I have more shoes that people would look at and think, I don't know, that's not a special shoe, Nick, but I can be like, yeah, my friend worked on that shoe, and I got that from, you know, somebody that I really love and care about and appreciate. And like, might not matter to, you know, the world, but like to me, like I'm a couple of steps removed from how this came to life, you know, and that's
how this
like
came to life.
where
Yeah.
I kind of is my sweet spot for why I end up getting a lot of stuff.
I love that, man. I love, again, it all always goes back to the story, right? For me especially.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'd much rather have, if somebody's like, "Hey, I love the kicks," or "Hey, I like your car," or, you know, "The hat you're wearing, it's dope. Where'd you get it?" I love, and maybe it's just because I love talking to people and I talk a lot. I love having a backstory to whatever brings attention to me. It's not about, you know, having the, you know, the flashiest sneakers on at any given moment because I want people to be like, "Whoa, what does he do? Look at that. How much are those worth?" Blah, blah, blah. It's about the backstory, you know? And so again, it can be something that could be relatively worthless to a lot of people because it wasn't rare, or because it wasn't, you know, some high level collab or whatever. But to your point, Nick, if your homie worked on it or helped design it, or, you know, like the car has a story, like for example, my C55, I didn't plan on keeping that, and I still may sell it at some point. But for now, whenever somebody like sees that car, because I take it out every now and then, it's like, hey, that's cool, because it kind of flies under the radar if you're not a car person. If you are a car person, then you geek out because like, oh, they only made like 1,750 of those, and blah blah blah, and, you know, only made them for 2 years. But beyond that, that was the car that I bought up in Canada for my final season of the show, and it got me around Vancouver when I was no longer living there because we had moved here to Texas. And it brought me back from Vancouver to Texas. I did a dope cross-country trip in it and everything. And so there's always those little stories to tell behind, again, the sneakers you're wearing, the car you're driving, the hat you're wearing, whatever it is, that I think that's what it all kind of boils down to, man, is, you know, if you want to flex and you want to just, you know, show off or whatever, hey, more power to you. I'm not going to hate on that either. If that's what makes you happy, go for it. Right. But I see this a lot in the watch world too, where, you know, there's guys out there that are just rocking $500,000 RMs or whatever because they feel like being seen. And, you know, a lot in the car world too. They'll drive a Veyron, or back in the day, or now whatever Bugatti or Lamborghini happens to be the most expensive out there, just so people know they have money, but they couldn't tell you anything about it.
Yeah.
I love the guy that rocks a Timex that was passed down to him from his grandpa, and it's beat up, and he's got stories as to why it's beat up. And, you know, those are the types of things that matter to me. And I think a lot of our audience can resonate with that, and some of the comments that we get back that up. The guests we've had on thus far have really backed that theory up. It's all about the story and their story and stuff. And so I think that's really, we talked about a bit about this off air before we launched, but I think that's kind of becoming our North Star here. Is the cars and the kicks are dope. We all love them. That's the vehicle to tell the story. And so I think that, you know, that's our takeaway so far from this first season, so to speak, of Cars and Kicks, the podcast in 2024, and something that we want to expand on in 2025. So all these moments are really, really cool. And it's fun sharing them and kind of reminiscing a little bit with y'all on all the stuff that's happened so far this year.
All right, so I want to jump into the car stuff.
Yeah.
A little bit here. And I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this one.
Oh, boy.
But I think one of the better moments in 2024 car-wise was the Jaguar rebrand.
I knew you were going to say that.
Was, I think that, I mean, how can you...
We need comments on this one. We need people...
Yeah, this episode may generate the most like interaction with the audience so far. It's going to be a hot take.
How can you talk about 2024 in the car world and not talk about the Jaguar rebrand? Like, that has to be like one of the biggest moments of the year, and I think it brought back I guess a legacy brand in a sense to the forefront and to a place where people are talking about them more. So I feel like you can't go. Now, do you agree with the rebrand? I think that's obviously up for discussion. People feel a certain way about it, rightly so. Not to judge, but they shook the world, the car world, the regular world, sneaker world. Everybody had something to say about the Jaguar rebrand, especially if you were a car guy or you were a designer or you thought you were a designer or you thought you were a car person. You had something to say. Everybody was in on the conversation. I can't believe they did that. Knowing good and well you couldn't do anything better, but that's a different discussion. That's a totally different discussion.
It goes back to what I said a couple episodes ago when we talked about this when it first happened. I feel like this is by design, and their rebrand, so to speak, this isn't the end of it. I feel like this was meant to get everybody talking and meant to be polarizing and meant to, buy them some time, really, for people to have conversations while they figure out exactly what it is that they're going to do. And I feel like if that is the overall plan, if this was by design, it's nothing short of like marketing genius, really, because it's literally taking a brand that nobody talked about, over the past couple years, at least not in a positive light, which is sad because it's got such a rich history, and I'm a big fan of Jaguar as a company, but it made them relevant again in one way, shape, or form, and people started talking about it. So whatever the end result is, whether they actually come through and build this, Batman-esque, Batmobile-esque, prototype, if it comes to fruition, if they stick with the logo that they're putting out there right now, whatever ends up happening, it's gotten people talking, and it's made Jaguar top of mind again. So kudos to their team for making that happen. However it happened.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Electric Type 00 or whatever, 01 or whatever it is, 02 or something.
But I think it's either they're too early to this or it's gonna be a huge success. Lifestyle is becoming more and more all encompassing, right? Like we don't think of it necessarily on the sneaker side as much because we're just accustomed to buying a Nike hoodie and Nike shoes and Nike whatever. And like, think about how many people have conversations about, oh, you can't wear Adidas socks with Nike shoes or Reebok, but whatever, like crossing brands and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think, on the car side of things, we see all of these like crazy high level collaborations, the Virgil Abloh Off-White Maybach, collabs, and Kith just did all those BMW, things. And, so Jaguar doing this to me is just like, hey, if it works, it's going to be one of the more genius moves we've seen. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of like heartbreak for the people that, remember some of the like the hood ornaments for me, like just like that was such a, even as a kid, I remember those thinking like, wow, like that has to be one of the like most crazy, rare, expensive cars I've ever seen because it had that on the hood, and you just never saw that, back then.
Yeah.
But I think, people are more, if you love the brand and people start to lean into this rebrand and this new kind of era for Jaguar, it could be really powerful. They could do a lot of cool stuff because there's nothing that's stopping people from saying, oh, you do, like we talked about, recently, the Porsche collab, right? The Andy All Porsche stuff.
Puma.
And, that being like a Porsche design collaboration. And, like I have Porsche design stuff randomly throughout the years and like have picked up things here and there, but like people don't necessarily tie those two things together. Although when you see it, you kind of like naturally do. But if people did think of that, think of how many Porsche enthusiasts you could bring into like new worlds by saying, oh, this little element of the, of the GT3 RS is tied into this pen or this wallet or whatever. where like those two things kind of run separately right now between Porsche design and Porsche.
Mhm.
But if Jaguar does it right, then all of a sudden you start seeing this, like, you know, you can kind of see the new logo being like a monogram kind of vibe. You can see it going towards like a Louis Vuitton. Like it has a ton of potential, and it, like, part of me is excited about it. Marketing mind me is like super excited to see where it goes. Car guy in me is kind of like, well, that was a fun ride, you know, like it's over now. But you know, both of you guys made the point, but it did exactly what they needed it to do, and it got everyone all across all sorts of different cultures and subcultures talking about it. And I think that's, you know, a huge win for them, regardless of where they go from here.
Yeah. It is interesting in general to see car companies and their different approaches to, I don't want to say staying relevant because it sounds kind of harsh, but you know, to kind of constantly reinventing themselves. Because to your point, Nick, this is, you're not just selling cars anymore. You're selling lifestyle. You're selling, you know, it's everybody, every business out there nowadays understands the importance of whatever it is beyond the utility that they're selling. It's the lifestyle. It's the cachet that comes with it. It's what, you know, however they're associated with the culture, so to speak. And so you're seeing, like, I saw something random today on Instagram. I was scrolling, and Bentley partnered with some influencer in the baking world, I suppose. She was making Christmas cookies that looked like the front end of a Bentley, and they were all, the icing was the different colors of that you can get the car in this year and everything. And so it's like you see stuff like that, and it, you know, at surface level, you're like, what do cookies have to do with Bentleys? I don't get it. But on the flip side, it's like I stopped and was like, hey, I like cookies. I like Bentleys. This is pretty dope, like, you know? So it is interesting to see these different approaches that the car manufacturers are taking, and how to stay in touch with the audience, because that's key in any business model nowadays. Everything is so connected. But again, being in the sneaker world and the car world that we live in, the three of us, it's really dope to see how people do that. And some of it's going to hit and some of it's going to miss, but it's fun watching it either way.
I think too, like, just seeing the evolution of that, you know, in sneakers, we talk about it a lot, and like, we, you know, collaborations have been a thing for 20 plus years, you know, 25 years at this point. And it's normalized. It's like expected. We see hundreds of them every year, you know, like it's something that we're never going to live without.
Yeah.
In the car world, it's cool to see a little bit more of that. Like, we talked about it in one of the early episodes where, you know, like, you had the Nautica, you know, Mercury Villager, you had
Eddie Bauer.
You know, the Eddie Bauer Ford Bauer Explorers and stuff. Now there's an opportunity for brands to go a little bit further. And yes, like, cars are obviously, you know, expensive, and you can't produce like limited numbers, but you can do interesting things. But what those collaborations really do is allow big, huge brands the freedom to be more creative and expressive with the things that they design and produce. And I think we've seen that in sneakers for so long that it's normalized. But the more we see this with cars, the more it just seems like, hey, you know, Lexus partnering with Malbon for you know, like a collab this year was super dope. And I think, you know, like, there's so much of what we talk about is this crossover stuff, and we see it all the time. You know, like, Malbon and a lot of those brands that are into golf right now are a lot of the old skate guys. Like, they were in the skate industry, and like the skateboard industry, you know, I praise it because it just, like, it made me see things differently. But like, there was so much of that, like, elevating the artist, respectful of each other wherever you came from, and then to push that into these big businesses who are, not to say that the businesses are intentionally, like, you know, pushing people out or whatever, but the machine runs, right? Like, and you have to put like a serious cog in that wheel in order for it to slow down and say, wait, are we doing something that matters, or are we just doing something because we're checking this list, you know, to get it done for the ultimate, you know, selling aspect of what we do. But with cars right now, you know, like, we're seeing a lot of it, and I hope, you know, like, that 2025 and beyond, we see even more of it, because I think it'll reshape the way people kind of connect with cars. And as we've talked about in previous episodes, I think it's super important that the automotive brands and the adjacent, aftermarket companies and all of that really embrace the change of all of this, because that industry is losing its passion in a lot of ways. And I think maybe there's a connection between like these worlds where cars and kicks, kind of support each other in some roundabout way.
I think we are going to see a little bit more of that, because if we're honest with ourselves, like the guys that are super passionate about cars, especially, they're fewer and further between. The generation that's coming up now, they're every now and then I'll run across a kid. I think I might have told this story before, but I dropped Enzo off at school. I take him Fridays. I take him in the Chevelle if I can. Most days it's the Rivian, but I took him one day in the C55, and there's a kid, fifth grader maybe, because it's elementary school. My son's in first grade, but fourth or fifth grader, and the older kids at the elementary school, and they'll help open the doors for the younger kids and stuff. And this kid, came up. He's like, "Yo," he goes, "Is that a V8?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes, it is." And he's like, "Man," he's like, "Mercedes power." And I was like, "Dude, who are you and who are your parents?" Because it's awesome that you had any inkling that this just because of the sound of the AMG badge, that this had a V8 in it. So kudos to that kid, and there is hope for the next generation. But all that is to say, I feel like the car companies having to figure out how to align themselves outside of just being a car company is super imperative right now, because as people progress, there are more and more people that view cars, more and more people that view sneakers as forms of transportation, as a means to get from point A to point B. And so how do you continue to make them cool? Because even if people, as they kind of gravitate away from maybe like the diehard car person, sneaker person, type thing, people are still searching for what's cool and what's hip and how they're going to connect with that. And so it's like music in a lot of ways. People will find their subgenre of music, and whether it's punk rock, whether it's hip hop, whether it's whatever, they kind of latch on to that for one reason or another. And so I think the car companies especially are starting to realize that early on and figure out how to become relevant with the younger crowd that isn't even old enough to buy a car right now, because it's going to matter in the next decade or so. And it's not going to be about, who made the most horsepower, who did this or that. It's like, who's got the cool factor and why? Like, who did they align with? What influencer did they collab with? What cookies did they bake, on Instagram one day, and that type of stuff. And so I feel like all of that is becoming super relevant, and it's nice to see, and maybe it is by design. Maybe a lot of the people that are getting into the marketing space now are that younger crowd. Maybe not as young as my son, so to speak, but the kids just coming out of high school and college, and the Gen Zers, et cetera, that, that kind of speak differently than we do, or the older heads did. And so maybe they're the ones kind of driving this forward, and kudos to them for doing stuff different, and it'll be exciting to see where it all goes for sure. I think Jacques taking a snack break.
Yeah.
What?
I know. I was trying to wait. I was like, should I grab my gummy bears now?
We're going for that Haribo sponsorship in 2025.
Yeah, I was trying to get a real quick snack while we talk. Yeah, I think also, like, as much as we, us olds like to get on the new generation, I think we got to kind of give them props, because they are going to be the reason why this next generation really pops, in the things that we see and that we're interested in. And I think even in the sneaker world, I think they've gotten tired of being told what to wear, and that's where you kind of get this new spur of like New Balance and Solomon and Saucony and all that stuff. Those people are starting to get their shine and being adopted into that world. So I think the same thing is going to happen in the car world. Is just the way that we traditionally thought and translated what was cool is slowly changing. That conversation is changing, or and if it's like a language, a new dialect is being added to the language, and that's what this new generation is going to start speaking, which is cool, and it's great for them. It's great for them to have something of their own. Every generation wants to have like their own thing, and I think that's what we're starting to see. This generation starting to really badge themselves as this is ours, and that's Saucony, that's Salomon, that's Asics. So 20 years from now, they'll be nostalgic about Salomon and Saucony and Asics the same way that we were about Jordan,
and Jordans
Nike in the 90s and all that stuff. So that'll be cool.
I think kind of moving more towards another good moment, so to speak, from 2024 that kind of ties into all this and bridging gaps in generations and stuff is talking about some of the events that we got to go to. The three of us this year. It was launching a podcast in the middle of the year. Didn't really know what to expect from it, but it's opened up some opportunities for us, and it's been super dope. And I guess one of the first ones I wanted to talk about, the good moments, would be kind of the hat I'm wearing today, would have been Luftgekühlt 10, which Jacques unfortunately did not get to attend. He had marital duties or something that weekend, had to make the wife happy.
Yes.
But Nick and I got to go to that, and it was... It's a really special moment. Again, they're celebrating 10 years of this, for lack of a better term, this just car gathering that was the brainchild of, Patrick Long and Jeff Zwart and those guys that found this niche in the car world, that being air-cooled Porsches, and said, hey, there's a lot of like-minded people here. Let's do something with that. And they've grown it every year and created now an event that goes beyond a car show, that is, there's music involved, there's art involved, there's the overall, like I mentioned when we talked about this on, I don't know how many episodes ago when we had just gone to Luft, it's like an art exhibit. It's, it's a curated exhibit of some of these cool cars throughout history, but it goes beyond that. And you see that in the crowd that was there. It was not just a bunch of old heads walking around talking about their Porsches. It was literally, like, in some cases, you could tell 3 generations, like grandpa and grandma with their son or daughter and their grandkids walking around checking this stuff out. And you'd have, 5, 6, 7-year-olds out there taking pictures of stuff, or really like leaning over and checking out the interior of an old 356 or something. And so I feel like that, to me, was one of the good moments of 2024 in the car space, was getting to kind of be a part of that. And I've been to a few of them, but this one just felt more special because you're seeing how it's grown and you're seeing how well it's resonating with so many different people, from different socioeconomic classes to different races to different generations to whatever. And at its core, I think that's what made me fall in love with cars in the first place, was sure, the form of self-expression and having something cool that I like to drive, but the conversations that happen because of that, and the events that I would get to go to, and the people I got to meet because of cars. And in your case, sneakers, Jacques, like sneakers have taken you from the mean streets of Pacoima to like all over the world. And same thing with you, Nick. And it's just like, when you start talking about this stuff, it's really, really cool, and being part of those moments, I don't know. It reminds me of why I'm still into it and why we're doing what we're doing with this show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Luft is like on its own is such an amazing, aspirational event for people, in my opinion. But like, personally, like, I think one of the things that stands out about that, walking around with you and just talking and like getting to know you more, I think like the thing about both cars and kicks for me is they are all so cross-cultural driven for me. Like, I have like an eclectic interest in all of these things. Like growing up, I wanted a lowrider. Like that was like the people I hung out with. Like that was where I was headed. But my family drove Hondas, so like I was like, okay, I got my '87 Accord when I turned 17, and was like, I'm the guy down the block had an '87 Accord and had hydraulics on it. I was like, okay, well, and then talking to you about your Toyota truck and like the tuner aspect of that, and the JDM world, and like the mini trucking world, and like. Like we talk about it a lot on the show, but like the thing that's shifted for cars for me is like cars and coffees and these meetups have really like connected people across so many different cultures. And I think that is also what I love about sneakers, right? Like I didn't grow up with money to buy sneakers, like I didn't have like real sneakers, brand name sneakers until I was, in my teens. And that was because I went and got jobs, but I think that's the beauty of it is like, I think like, going back to like the self-expression thing, what is important to people and how that translates through the shoes that they choose, the events that they go to, the cars they drive, and like the generational connections, like I think we're in a place where we're going to get to watch a whole evolution for both of these industries. And like, I'm going to love both of them 5, 10, 20 years from now, regardless of what they look like, because of the people they brought into my life. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be really exciting to see like the changes that happen. And I think Luft is just like a perfect example of like taking things to a level that the average person can go into that and really be wowed by it. Where car shows as a whole, I think are, unless you're there with other people with their cars and it's a community thing for you, going to a car show is very rinse and repeat in a lot of ways. Like the formula for car shows has been the same for a really long time. I personally love it because I get to go see people that I love and respect and am inspired by their builds and stuff like that. But making it where we can bring, like one of the other, people that we met this year, Armando, sorry, I'm forgetting his name, right?
Armando,
G's on Sunday.
G's on Sunday. Guisados
Armando,
tacos,
G's
some of the
Sunday.
best tacos I've ever had, by the way. But yeah, shout out to Armando.
Yeah, exactly. And like having those conversations at the event that we went to, and like really like hearing how he's bringing the families out with his events, and it's like we're all kind of trying to do these same things. It's like, how do we get this to be more of us? More of us bringing more of our friends and like connecting with more and more people and kind of like sharing those passions. And it's such a, it's just such a cool thing. And like I'll toss that to you guys. Cause like, Discounts Higher sending us to Texas for, life-changing experience for me. Like, riding around in the back seat of Erik, doing donuts and on a wet pad. But, anyway, go ahead.
Erik definitely showed us how it's supposed to be done versus how we were doing it, which was dope. Shout out to Discount Tire and the folks at Treadwell for bringing us out. But we're really close to the end of the show, so I want to get some just some quick rapid fire moments from you guys in the car world. Favorite car brand from both of you guys for 2024.
Oh, car brand or like, I mean, this is where it gets tough. I think.
Yeah.
Okay, let me answer this in kind of a quick.
Which brand has done the coolest thing to you in 2024? What was the coolest thing you saw in the car world in 2024?
The brand that's done the best job overall, in my opinion, would be Hyundai Genesis. I feel like they have really put their mark on the car world. Genesis now, not only creating the luxury element of Hyundai, but also announcing they're going to be racing in World Endurance Challenge next year at the top level, which is amazing. So I think they've done a killer job of that. Favorite car that got announced, launched, whatever you want to call this year, would have to be the Aston Martin Valhalla. That deserves a whole other episode because that car it's been years in the making and seeing it kind of come to fruition. They did the Valkyrie too, which might have been last year, but Aston Martin I've always had a big soft spot for them and their car design. So those would be some of my favorites of the year to kind of give it a quick, short answer. Nick?
Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Nick?
Those are definitely up there for me. I would second the Genesis and the World Endurance Challenge entry. Like that is phenomenal. I'm excited for that. I don't own this brand or, I don't know that I maybe will ever, but I gotta say Rivian, man. Like I really loved the I love the idea of what they're headed towards with the other models that are on the way, but more specifically, I love that they brought in the Knight Rider theme, the Halloween themes, the Christmas lights. Like
Oh,
all of
dude.
that to me is such a powerful, like, let your guard down and just enjoy what it is, because big brands don't do that very often. So I just say shout out to Rivian for those kind of things
On
this year.
that
It was
little
pretty
anecdotal
amazing.
bit, my truck updated itself. For those that don't know, we've talked about it a lot, but I drive a Rivian R1T daily. It updated itself overnight with the new like kind of Christmas updates. There's some cool things there. We won't get super into it, but Google Cast now, so you can watch TV right in the big screen in the middle of the truck and all sorts of stuff. But we got out of the truck this morning when I went to go get coffee at Moravian Coffee. Shouts out to those guys, because talk about collabs. We had a collab with them. Check that out. The Cars and Kicks limited edition coffee collab of the year. But no, we went to coffee, Enzo and I, this morning, and got out of the truck. And the truck, has a proximity sensor. When you walk away, it locks. Typically, the lock sound is like a little bird chirping. That's kind of the signature. It was like Santa's sleigh bells this morning. We walk away from the truck and it's like,
oh, that's cool.
And I was like, what the? And Enzo lost his mind. He thought it was the coolest thing. So yeah, to your point, Nick, not only are they having fun and not taking themselves too seriously, but they're also, on the serious side of things, they're expanding, the charging network. They're looking into new battery technology. They're doing all sorts of stuff, and I think that is a good point. I am sad I didn't mention them because I actually do drive one, but I do like what they're doing. So shouts out to Rivian for 2024 contenders of good moments.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll third that, I guess, on the Rivian front. I drive a Tesla Model Y, but I've been I would say basically stalking the Rivian website.
There you go.
Looking at the R1S. I really like the R1S. I think if I win the lottery or something, maybe I'll be able to get myself one. But rocking the Model Y now. But I also like what they did with their charging stop out in
Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
They're like charging facility, making it feel more like an experience in the store.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as someone that charges at like Tesla stops, some of them can be in some very questionable areas. Yeah. And to see Rivian approach it as, let's make this nice.
Yeah.
Like, that's dope. I really love that approach. Now, I'm sure Elon has done some sort of algorithm and most people don't care, but I would think that more people would care because of how much time you spend at a charger. Like, you're spending 15, 20, 30 minutes at a charger to be able to walk in somewhere, grab some snacks, use a nice bathroom, like that sort of experience. It elevates the ownership of the car, in my opinion. So kudos to Rivian for that. I think that's a good call out, Nick.
100% agree, man. Like, I think that's like we talked about a little bit, but like, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but it made me think of like my experience. Like, I'm a big Honda fan. My Ridgeline has a terrible user interface, in my opinion. It's an Android Auto. Like, I can use CarPlay and stuff, and it works, but it's slow. It's just not well designed. The user experience is not well designed, and I think that's a fundamental thing that like the future of all of this stuff looks like, right? I'm thinking about like, I have like Hirachi Adapts. I know you've got some Adapt shoes, Jacques, and the app got shut down by Nike this year, and you can't really change anything on the shoes. You can push the buttons and like tighten the shoes, but you can't change the colors of the outsole, buttons or whatever anymore. So those are the things that I think are going to be so key, not just for the olds, as you called us, but for the next generation.
The olds.
Of the next generation, right? Like the younger generations are more in tune with apps and with being connected throughout everything in their lives. So if the brands aren't focused on those things and making that experience from thinking about the car all the way to the destination and beyond, and having Rivian or whatever brand you are planted, in that user experience along the way, I think it applies to sneakers too. Like we're getting to the point where the world is saturated with these things, and as much as we might love to have like these crazy collections, it's also like more and more important for us to be, you know, particular about how we choose to spend our money, and how, you know, the brands we choose to work with and buy things from and all that. And I think that is also a generational thing that we're going to see kind of in these, you know, like in the kind of come up of these newer brands on the sneaker side that are, or newer collaborators on the sneaker side, where it's just a cool time to watch and experience these things for me.
Yeah. I think we could talk about a lot of this stuff, and we will. We got big plans for 2025. It's been exciting to share in the launch of this with the two of you and everybody out there listening. I think I want to wrap up with some shout outs to some of the people that have shown their love to us since we launched this. You know, Jacques just mentioned the Discount Tire Treadwell experience that we got to go to. Was an amazing event put on by Discount Tire. Shouts out to those guys for inviting us out there. To Victor Carrillo, head of ID agency, who pitched us to them and got them to somehow fly the three of us out to San Antonio and experience this event. Super dope. So shouts out to Victor. Yeah. Shouts out to Jonathan Sieber at Porsche Classic for not only putting on an amazing program in LA, having me fly out to kind of host/judge that, but that allowed me to get out to Luftgekühlt with Nick and enjoy that weekend. So shouts out to those guys and Pat Long and them for putting on an amazing event at Luft. Shouts out to the Hype Drive guys and Eddie for doing a Cars and Kicks event and having us there, and you know, maybe we'll do bigger things with them next year, who knows. But there's been that. You know, we mentioned my boy DJ Science early on for sending us sneakers. He's the only guy that sent us sneakers so far. So any of y'all out there listening that have sneakers you want to send our way, you know, step it up. We've already got people doing it. So
step it out. Yeah,
but
get in line.
Yeah, get in the mix there. And I know we're going to be forgetting some people. Our lovely guests. We've had some amazing guests so far this year. You know, Zach, Peter, Brett. You know, I'm not naming these names in order. RJ, obviously.
RJ.
Just an amazing, you know, thing for them to give up some of their time to come be a part of what we're doing. And, you know, before I forget anybody else, definitely biggest shouts out to everybody out there listening and watching. You know, you're allowing us to continue to do what we do, and there's more and more of you every single day, and we see you and we appreciate you. And we got a lot more coming for you in 2025. And that's my shout outs. I'm going to let Nick and Jacques kind of add their moments before we sign off here.
I think you got most everybody. I mean, just all the people that are listening and supporting and sharing this show with everybody, and, you know, asking questions and engaging with us. It's super, super inspiring. It keeps us going, and I'm looking forward to more of it in 2025. The one caveat I will say, the Lone Lobos crew for letting us do our first ever in-person episodes was amazing. Using the studio, the support, like that was, you know, like really a dream come true. Like, you know, like we don't really have a place to do that, and to be able to do that on short notice and be able to like share that space and, you know, just so cool to me. So, looking forward to more in 2025. How about you, Jacques?
And with that being said, they got all the congratulations and thanks and all that stuff out of the way. Thank again. I'm kind of, you know, just echoing what they said. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. 2025 is going to be amazing. We do have a little bit of sad news. It all can't be good in 2025, as much as we would like it to continue to be great. But the intros for this show, those are going to go away. We're going to have one solid intro that we love, and we won't be able to do the spontaneous. Look, I know you guys love them, and they were.
Jacques, did you just announce your retirement from our intro live on?
No, it's not my retire. It's not my retirement. I think just in 2025, I'm like those old rock stars where they just kind of take some time off, and then they come back for their final tour, their final tour. So that's kind of what it is. Right now, I'm just taking a break, and just just giving you guys some consistency. That's all. That's all.
I feel you.
So in our house, that we would cue the Sarah McLachlan. In the
Yes.
Yes.
That's essentially what it is.
And now we're all going to go out and adopt dogs too. So
go to top and feed children, hungry
yes.
children. With that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening, watching, and tuning in to the Cars and Kicks podcast. I am Jacques Slade, but I couldn't do this show alone. I have Erik Valdez and Nick Engvall, and we are Cars and Kicks. We appreciate you. See you guys in 2025. Have a wonderful holiday season. Have an amazing new year, and we wish you nothing but the best in 2025.
Yeah. See y'all.